think our average deal size was 16,000. And
Okay.
then in this past year, we grew that to 24,000.
20 years old.
I don't think my age ever really held me back. That was never something I struggled with. If I'm going to be chilling, I want to be working on my business and striving to be better.
Just finished last year, 2023, closing $700K in revenue.
Goal for this year is to hit 1.25 million in revenue.
All right, today, so we got Emilio on the podcast who operates out of California, 20 years old, just finished last year, 2023, closing $700K in revenue. Emilio, welcome to the podcast, man. Just great to have you here, man.
Appreciate you having me on, Chandler. Let's get it.
Dude, all right, so let's get right into it, dude. So when you started real estate, you were 17 years old. Obviously, you've been doing it for 3 years, which is kind of wild that you could start closing deals so young. I didn't even know you closed deals before you're 18. But walk us through, like, so you came on, you started working with Level Up when you were doing about 10K per month, 10, 15K per month. And then now you just closed a year of about 60K a month. So what was that transition period look like? Like, talk us through some of the key things that you did in your business over the last couple of years.
So over the last couple of years, I think the biggest thing, like what you're saying, took me from 10K a month, in pretty inconsistently to getting, this past year closing out 700,000 in 23, would have to be putting lead managers in place and beginning to get the acquisition manager process kind of in place as well. I think the biggest thing is just filling the different seats and the roles that I was doing every single day that were taking most of my time up. That way I can focus on, what was going to actually drive the business forward, like putting those, filling those seats and then putting processes in place. That way I could replicate what I was doing using other people.
For sure. So when you were deciding to go with lead managers as like the person you're going to hire to kind of like help scale your business and build some consistency, why did you end up going? Like, why did you choose lead managers? Like, What was the state of your business at that moment?
Yeah, I think so. Most of my time was spent calling SMS and cold call leads. And I mean, they're pretty cold leads, right? We have to get through a lot of those to actually get to the motivated sellers. So it's because a lot of my time was going there and I wasn't really having the most quality of conversation throughout the day. I felt like I could leverage those lead managers, put them into place to have those conversations for me. And I could focus my time on talking to the hot sellers, the appointments that those lead managers are setting. So that beginning step was just to kind of fill that role. That way I could only talk to hotter, warmer sellers.
So basically your role from that moment on, because like, I think this is important, is like you basically said, all right, what am I wasting my time on? Like, is worth no money, dollar per hour wise for me? And like, how can I get someone else to do it? And that was the lead manager role. What kind of like, what did your business look like? And like, what was your day to day? Like, what did it transform to after you brought lead managers onto your team?
So at that point, I got to focus more time on selling our deals because when we would lock stuff up, I wasn't also having to, every single time a cold call or SMS lead came in, I didn't have to rush and call that lead. I had people calling those leads, setting the appointments for me. So at that point, I got to focus solely on acquisitions. And then once we locked those deals up, or, I was the closer locking those deals up, I got to focus and take more time to actually sell those deals versus just putting in minimal effort, maybe texting a couple cash buyers. And instead I got to, maybe grow my cash buyers list, reach out to more buyers and kind of try to maximize that deal. So I guess as far as like what the day-to-day looked like, I got to focus more on things that were more important, like dispositions, maybe not, I guess you could say not really so much transactions, but I guess building the processes for my team to begin growing.
That makes sense. So because I think like that's a thing that a lot of people struggle with, is like you have, like, you're kind of doing everything. It's like you get a deal finally and you're like, I got all these new leads coming in. I got to try to sell this deal. I'm getting pulled in like 10 directions. So like it basically allowed you to like kind of just like really automate that front portion up to where you're only talking to motivated people and selling deals. When you start, because I know there's a lot of people who also like dispo, off market or like have a couple of select buyers they sell to. When you were able to start adding more buyers, did that like change your deal size or have any impact on the business from a revenue standpoint?
Yeah, for sure. I think in 2022, where, that's where I was just starting to grow out that lead management role. I think our average deal size was maybe like 16,000. And then in this past year, we grew that to 24,000.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. So
another 8K.
Right. Yeah. Just
deal.
allowed me to spend more time selling those deals and reaching out to more buyers versus, that limited buyers list that I was using in 2022. And obviously starting to put things on market as well, is what helped last year as well. We think we had 2 deals that we put on the MLS last year, and obviously that those were bigger spreads, so we were able to grow our deal size using those deals as well.
Okay, that makes total sense. So
Yeah.
when you like, who did you try to like add to your buyers list? Because obviously, like, you probably your first couple of people you added to your list were from like RIAs or people you just like met word of mouth kind of stuff. Like, how'd you go about actually building your list from that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think at first, and it was more reaching out to people on Facebook, looking at, every time I was running comps and would run into like a flip, I would take a screenshot of that, and at the end of the night, I'd skip trace it, try to get a hold of them. That was a couple of things I was doing, and then obviously once I kind of going back to the point of filling those roles, right, started having a VA do that, skip tracing those for me, kind of getting the numbers, and that way all I had to do was call them up, and just kind of connect with them.
Streamlining it, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the things you would want to do, just like having it done more, basically.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, sick. So at this point, from 10 to this, I guess, like, where did this get you revenue wise? When you hired a lead manager, focus more on dispo, increase your deal size, like, where were you sitting, like, just when you were only doing the acquisitions?
So in 2022 we did 300,000. I think it was like just over 3. It was like 304 or something. And then once I filled acquisitions, once I put that into place, and that was about maybe beginning of the second quarter of 2023. That was what obviously took more time off my plate. And at that point, most of my time is now spent kind of using the time that I'm not dialing to obviously like quality control for my team. Trying to be, I know, me and you have talked about it, being the best, sales manager that I can be. Now I'm managing people more than kind of doing the day-to-day calls and locking up these sellers, setting the appointments. It's more just trying to teach those people how they can do that and replicate that to kind of build the team within.
Yeah. So you had that shift too, like when you worked with a lead manager as well. And so it's important at both levels. Like when you have an acquisition manager who comes in and takes your job, because like ultimately you're just trying to fire yourself repeatedly, right?
Yeah.
So it's like when you did that for lead management and acquisitions, like what were some of the big, like, holy shit, like I got to run a team and like figure out how to make money through other people. Was there any like learning lessons you had?
Absolutely. I think it's all the stuff that, we still have this to this day where it's like, questions will come up and I'll have an answer in my head, but I'll be like, okay, this isn't documented. How can I, and I heard you talk about this, is like, how can I get this out of my head and into someone else's, right? So I mean, that stuff is still happening every single day, trying to put, everything in place. That way, if it happens once, it's like, okay, now we know what to do when it happens the next time and every time after that. So, as far as like any like, oh shit moments, it's kind of, they're still happening every day. Honestly, it's like, how can we just replicate this?
So it's been like probably the biggest challenge to like take your brain and put it in someone else's brain overall, just in general. Yeah. What things have you done or like learned from doing that? Because like you've done it for like a year and a half, 2 years now at this point.
Yeah, I think everybody takes feedback a different way. Everybody kind of learns a little bit of a different way. Not everything. So that's why I like to do for like resources. For example, like on our SOP docs, would do a video and would do like a doc kind of explaining that video. That way, someone who's a little bit more of a visual learner or, likes reading more, that we have a resource for both of them. Aside from that, I think that's a tough question. It's something I'm still working on, honestly, but let's
go into the SOP docs. Like what even is an SOP? Like we'll start there.
I think it's writing out the kind of the explanation of what needs to be done and then showing them exactly how to do it. That way there's a process to follow every single time. And then the idea obviously is that they're able to not have to kind of watch that process every time, but they get the hang of it and then become kind of like secondary to them. So I guess, like I said, it's, for example, an SOP doc that we have for like lead management, there would be an explanation video of our CRM, Salesforce, and kind of like what everything means, kind of going through like, hey, this is, what each field means. And then we also have a doc kind of explaining, hey, this is the lead section. This is the, where you're going to put all the property information. So we have that on a video as well as like on a doc kind of explained out.
Yeah. And I think this is like if you don't have these in your business, like just for everyone listening, you basically like don't have a way to teach anyone else how to do anything that you do. Like there's no like repeatable process built in your business. I think in like I think that's like one of the, you've mentioned it a bunch of times, but for you to bring on someone to your team to kind of like start to scale and have other people take your roles and responsibility, a lot of it is just like saying, okay, I know how to make a wholesale deal happen. Now, how do I teach someone else how to do it? And the easiest way that at least I know how to do it is to write it all down on a piece of paper and then give it to someone,
Yeah.
like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then like explain it, like kind of like a dictionary.
Yeah.
Um, so, so that's, so if you don't have that, you got to definitely get that in your business, and start to have your team follow it, because otherwise, if there's no process, I mean, Amelia, like, do you let your team like not follow the process? Like, if they're not following the process, well, what do you do?
Well, we have to kind of tell them, I think, hey, we're not doing this. This is the reason we do this is so that we can have X outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And, when we're not doing this, this is what's happening. So I think I was just kind of going over this on a role play today with the sales team. We were going into like motivation. And for example, this guy, a guy on my team, he went off on a specific part of the script. And I told him back in motivation, like, hey, we probably want to stick here and find out more about this. Because that's, this is the outcome that we're going to get. And when we didn't do this, I didn't say this. I didn't open up as the prospect on the role play. So when they're
Mm-hmm.
not following the process, it's more like, hey, kind of showing them what's going to happen when we don't follow the process and why we want to follow the process, what our desired outcome is there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like huge, because the process, like if you have one document that works, when if someone follows it, it's going to work. Otherwise,
Exactly.
you don't necessarily know what's going to happen, because then you're like off in la la land. And like, dude, like, I mean, if you have like, because this is before we had a sales process, we try to like train our sales team,
Yeah.
and we're like, how the fuck do we train these people? Because there's like a million different things that could change. Like, this circumstance is different than this one, and like you're like, there's no way we can like have more than one salesperson, because the amount of things you have to train them on is
Yeah.
different for every situation. So it's like you gotta have like a structured dance. Like, I don't know, salsa's a dance, right? And they do the
Yeah.
same things over and over again.
I think like bringing on this second acquisition manager, that's something that, it's been a learning process for me too. Cause, the way I hired the first one, I know I had to, not onboard him the same way. I know I had to improve my process when I onboarded the second acquisition manager than I did the first.
Mm-hmm.
And now I have more processes in place, more videos, more resource docs, and, we're improving our CRM. So being able to keep up to date on those improvements that we're making, and always making the pivots and tighten up our business in certain places, that has to be documented. That way, when we bring on new people, it's kind of streamlined, like you were saying.
Yeah. So okay, talk to me about this. You're bringing on a second acquisitions guy. We didn't even talk about the first one. So actually, let's backtrack up and go to the first guy, because you went from 10K to when you were just a closer. So like we delegated appointments, you delegated acquisitions. How did you go? Like, when did you know it was time to hire an acquisitions first off, and then like how did you go about doing that?
I think so. When did I know it was time to hire acquisitions? It was honestly after leaving the Denver event
Yeah.
that you guys had for Level Up. Obviously, after all those presentations and looking at numbers and just talking to people, and I knew that it went back to like, hey, if I'm not locking up these deals, if I'm not the one doing the dialing, we're not making any money. We're not moving the business forward.
Mm-hmm.
So I needed to put an acquisitions manager in place. And as soon as I got home from that event, I moved my lead manager up to acquisitions. And that
Yeah.
first month, he got 4 contracts.
That's
First month.
sick.
And it hasn't been obviously consistent since then. That was more like toward the end of the year. We had a little bit of a slowdown. But that just showed us like, I could have locked up those 4 contracts myself, right? But that provided me more time. One of those 4 contracts was an MLS deal that we ended up making. It was like 30K on, right? And on selling that off market, we never would have been able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you had to go and like learn that process and like do it, see it through on the back end. And the only way you're really able to do it to its fullest extent is by having tons of free time built
Exactly.
up.
To take those calls right from agents on the MLS, put the schedule the walkthroughs, all that.
Yeah, it's all like, there's a lot more, like, people don't realize, but when you do novations or sell your deals on MLS, there's a lot more nuance that comes on the back end. Like,
Yeah.
a lot more headache. The deals are a little bit different. You got more paperwork, and yeah, a lot more open houses, showings.
Yeah.
So Amelia, okay, so when you hired the second acquisitions guy, how did you like identify that you like who you wanted to hire? Because I think a lot of people know like kind of like how the job's done, but it's like find the who, not the how. Like focus on the who, not the how. It's like
Yeah.
a huge piece. So like, how did you kind of identify who you wanted to bring on, and then like go about finding them?
Obviously, yeah, working on that hiring process with you guys were able to help me put that process in place and run the initial interviews for me and pass me on the really qualified prospects that we
Mm-hmm.
were looking for. And I think ran about 7 interviews, I believe it was, for this hiring
Mm-hmm.
process. And I I'd say the biggest thing I learned was just being able to talk to different people, and right off the bat you can really kind of read what type of person they are and the way they bring themselves to the interview, their demeanor, and the
Mm-hmm.
questions that they're asking, right? I think as I did more interviews, after like the first couple, I really felt like I got the hang of it. I was able to ask better questions. I was able to identify what somebody was looking to accomplish, based off the questions I was asking, and then what they were hoping for, like in the near future, and like kind of, I guess you can say, future as well. So I feel
Yeah.
like the biggest thing that it came to, who I wanted to hire was, I think one thing you told me was, how would you feel like talking to this person every single day, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
that somebody you can see yourself, training them? How do they take feedback? You talk to them every single day. Can you see yourself doing that? And there were some people that I interviewed that I was like, honestly, no. I don't see myself being able to chop it up with this guy every single day.
Yeah.
And obviously, the guy that we did bring on, he was a gem. He's been doing great so far. We brought him on. I think it's only about his second, yeah, still in his second week. But I'm excited to have him on the team. And when I had that first call with him, I think I told you, I was like, yeah, this guy's solid. Let's schedule this panel interview.
Mm-hmm. How'd you know that he was solid? Like, because there's a lot of nuances, and like you said,
Yeah,
like you can kind of feel people's vibe. Like,
for sure.
what about this guy made him good? And then like, yeah, go ahead, go ahead for that. What about made this guy good? What made this guy great?
Well, yeah, that's still a good question, right? Because it's still like my second hire for this role. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest thing that I really liked about him was he had previous experience. He had tried to wholesale in the past. He was very straight up as to why he wasn't, going to continue doing it on his own. I felt like he was being honest in his answers. He did well on the role play. I felt like he had the skills necessary, and he seemed like the type of guy that was ready to get after it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's exactly somebody that I want on my team. Somebody who's really just ready to strive and reach different goals. He had the idea of leading a team, and I think that's obviously, that's who doesn't want that, right? To be a leader. So I think that's something I really liked in one of his answers, and I saw that it was something that really just someone that I wanted on the team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was like, I think this guy would be a good addition
Absolutely.
to the squad. He'd make us a better unit as a whole, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I think there's like a lot of things. Like, I think another misconception that people have is they think that they can't hire a salesperson who are like has already done the job. Um, like this guy had done the job before,
Yeah.
and like I think there was multiple other people who had as well. It just like for whatever reason, culturally or core values or whatever, they just didn't align. And I think that there's a lot of people out there, especially in like wholesaling is becoming a bigger industry, and a
Right.
lot of people have done it, tried it, succeeded at it, worked for someone else. And if you just put the right job ad out there, then those people will come to you. Not saying that everyone's going to be like rock solid, but um, I mean, you can find people for pretty like solid, fair wages and like with good experience.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. I think the biggest thing is, now that I have that hiring process and I can put it in place, is being able to replicate it and really just get better every time.
mhm.
Not every hire is going to be a good hire. I'm sure you've hired and fired a lot of people. So I
Yeah,
think it's really just getting the reps in, and throughout this year, really continuing to grow. I have that
yeah,
process in place now, or I can put it in place now, but obviously there's going to be kinks always that you have to work out.
yeah. I saw this from Gary Vee the other day on a short, and he's like, the biggest mistake people make is that they fire way too slow. And what, like, in my opinion, what he says is like, I've never had a person who comes in and like is like, this guy's not that good, or like he's okay, and then they become like incredible. There's been one circumstance out of like 80 hires that's happened, one
Yeah.
time. But the reason why he became successful is because he had the character traits, and he was just young. So it just took him like 7 or 8 months to like blossom into a little bit more maturity and stuff. That's
Makes
the
sense.
only reason that worked. Every other time someone comes in and they're mid day one, you just got to get them out, because if you know from day one they're not going to work, they're not going to work day 30 either.
Yeah.
99% of the time.
Yeah. And I think
And you
to
don't
add
want
to
to
that, oh, my bad. Now you're
go
good.
ahead. No, you're good, dude. Go ahead.
My bad. I think to add to that point, it's like, you can hire those types of people, but you're obviously not going to get the results that you're looking for, the results that are going to take you to the next level.
For
So I think
sure.
that's a big point too.
Another huge, yeah, like, okay, we were just, okay, there's a lot to unpack here. But another huge thing is you never really know how good someone is until their first day. Like, I've hired a couple people recently. Like, one guy was a pro soccer player, or semi-pro soccer player. He's like really, really talented, had a lot of past success, which is a big thing that I look for in anyone we hire. And it just didn't work out. And there was like nothing that was, it just was like more of like a core value fit. And it just, like, for whatever reason, just didn't work out. And that's just the reality. But like, you would think on paper, this dude's going to be the fucking best thing since sliced bread. And, he was good, but it wasn't like the right vibe. So
Yeah.
not everyone's going to work out. And like, you're going to hire people and it's going to work out, and you're going to hire people and it's not going to work out. And
Makes sense. Yeah.
the only way you can find that out is by more experience. But another thing I want to say is that with sales guys, I was just talking to my friend John, John Emilio
Yeah.
from, and we were basically just talking about like the standard for sales management. The standard you hold people to is the standard that they're going to fall. And like, the question he was asked for his sales team when they're underperforming is, "Hey man, what's the standard that you hold people to?" And he's like, "Well, the goal is like, 6 contracts per month. That's the goal." And then he asked, "Well, what's everyone getting right now?" "Oh, like 2 or 3." "Okay, so your standard's 2 or 3, but you want 6." So like, in reality, like, if you were just to change your standard to be 6, then you would operate a lot differently as a leader of the team. So
Yeah.
that's like another. I mean, we could go so deep on this, but like, that was something else that came to my mind on this topic.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I mean that's still things that I'm beginning to learn. Leading these two guys, and really obviously it's 4 or 5 guys that I'm leading. Plus the lead managers. So those are kinks that I'm working out as well, and really starting to see that, like you said, if you what you expect is what they're going to try to achieve. So you can't really expect them to achieve more than what you talk to them about every day, and what you're
For
showing
sure.
them and what you're talking to them about.
For sure. Okay, this is a complete like 180. Do you ever get pushback from your team, people you work with in the industry, or anyone at all, in business, for being 20 years old and be like young?
My team never. I tell you, actually, one of the interviews of the 7 interviews that I did when hiring the second acquisitions was, I think it was like maybe the second or third one, and I remember the notes from Roshan, who had passed it over. Right, he was like, this guy, he's gonna get straight to the point, super, adamant about just kind of talking about price and or not price, but talking about the offer and what the pay
Mm-hmm.
structure looks like. And when I hopped on the interview, he was like, he jumped right into it. And later in the interview, he'd asked like, "Are you like the acquisition manager or one of the acquisition manager there?" And I could tell like he was making that type of face and asking that question because he could tell I was young. And
Yeah.
I told him like, "No, I'm the owner of the company, and I'm the one interviewing you here." So, and that guy did not end up. I just knew he wasn't the right fit. I knew
Yeah.
that was somebody that I didn't want on my team.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Okay, what about this? The first time you ever went to a closing and you're like 17 going to collect a check, and like the escrow officer's like, "What the fuck?"
I'll tell you, I always did wires for that, so I never run
Okay.
into that. But I guess as far as like going in person and talking to a seller, every time they ask me, "How old are you?" How old do you think I am? And they usually say like mid-20s, and I'm like, "Yeah." How'd you know?
How'd you know I was so old?
Yeah.
Dude, that's hilarious. Has your what about this, dude? This is a question that I was asked. Did you like have to gain like this level of confidence to feel like you could do things at a young age, or did you ever deal with that period?
Honestly, I feel like that was never something I struggled with. I think it was more just seeing the work actually turn into something, the small wins every single day was really what built that confidence. I don't think my age ever really held me back. I come from a family where, a lot of, they're entrepreneurs. We all own businesses, and I genuinely just never really saw myself kind of what I wanted to do. And, I knew I wanted to own a business, and I think I had came
Mm-hmm.
across this, and I had dove in, and just every single day seeing, when I make calls, I get leads. When I talk to
Mm-hmm.
these leads, I'm having good conversations, and just seeing the small wins stack up every day. I feel like that was more what kind of built the confidence. I don't think age was ever really kind of on my mind with that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I assume that would be your answer. I was just curious. Like, you grew up in a family of entrepreneurs. It's like for me, like my dad started his like uh, entrepreneurial like career journey when he was like 15 years ago. So, or no, I was in sixth grade when he started. So, however
Right.
long ago that was, I was like 11 maybe. And like I saw like our family's like lives trajectory. Like, we were like my parents both had good salaries and good incomes, but when I saw my dad like start to like triple his income like by owning his own business from like what he was making before, and like I saw like the things their family was able to do,
Yeah.
I was like, damn, like I think that that's the only option. So like no matter what, I'm gonna definitely be an entrepreneur. But what kind of impact did growing up in a family of entrepreneurs have for you?
I think it was never that like I was expected to own a business or run my own business or do anything. I would felt like it was always more expected for me to go to school and get good grades and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And school was never really for me. I never really liked school, but I always knew that I wanted to own a business. I never knew exactly what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just being around a family of entrepreneurs, seeing everybody, you not going to say that not really have anybody to answer to, because obviously you have to answer to your team, you have to answer to your clients and things like that. But I think it's more like being able to have your own problems and solve through them on your own, instead of having to follow a process that somebody else is has for you. I think that's always been something that's attractive to me, and being able to be in control of how big you can grow that. I've
Yeah.
always loved that, and that's always been something I want to do.
Do you ever so like yes, I agree with all that. I'm the same way. Do you ever consult with your family like about your business? Like, do they ever like help you? Do you ever help them with their business?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's all in different industries. Like my family's more in like we have a tax business, like different restaurant businesses,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously, I'm in real estate. So it's different types of business, but it can all there's all principles that kind of are the same. Um,
Mm-hmm.
le- Really leadership tactics, because for example, like my family's in the restaurant business, they have waitresses, cooks, managers, and things like that, and people who run the floor. So it's being able to go. It goes back to leading people, and people are people. So you're gonna have to communicate with them. You're gonna have to deal with their emotions, deal with
Mm-hmm.
um, their personalities. So when it all goes back to leading people, I think that's the biggest thing that we have in common, and we have to really converse and kind of talk about that. I think that's always a fun conversation.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Like that your whole family like does that. Like I know like you can just like relate on a different level for sure. Um, were you a bad student in school?
I never, I never really like. I'd say like in middle school, I never really got like great grades, and in high
Uh,
school, I had like maybe like one good year. I'll tell you, funny story. I always kind of like telling. I graduated my senior year with straight Fs because it was COVID, and they had reduced the passing grade from a 60%, which is a D, to a 50%, which is an F. So I passed with like 54s, 57s, 59s. And not because I was, I'm not dumb. I just didn't apply myself. And at that point, I was already wholesaling. I already closed the deal. I was completely checked out. I
yeah,
just did the necessary assignments to let me walk the stage.
dude, that's crazy. So yeah, like because I was gonna say like I think that's how dude. I didn't go to my last like 2 semesters of college, and like I didn't end up making it through, dude. I,
Yeah.
I almost I almost passed all my classes one semester without going to class except for test days. I got like a 66, a 68, and like I think I might have passed one or something like that, like a econ class or something stupid. But yeah, dude, that's pretty funny. When you don't apply yourself, it doesn't matter how smart you are, dude. If
Man,
you don't show up,
it's crazy. Do you feel like you use anything, or how much of what you use in college or what you learned in college do you use in today's your life and your businesses?
Um, I think zero. Fuck yeah, zero. But I think what maybe econ and accounting were two classes that I could say that taught me foundational things for
Okay,
business
that's
to
fair.
where
Yeah,
I without if understanding macroeconomics to the fucking macroeconomics 101 has helped me a little bit because I can watch YouTube videos and learn a little bit. And
yeah,
econ, being able to read a P&L, balance sheets, cash flow statements, all that kind of stuff, that was helpful. Other than that, yeah, nothing mattered. But I think the biggest thing college did for me, and I'm curious actually about how you did this, but for me, like college was like the time for me to grow up and like do things that I never got to do in school. Because when I was in high school, all I was doing was like discipline, workout, sports, compete, workout, sports, compete over and over again. And that's all I did. I didn't do anything else. So I was like super structured, but I never like lived a life because
yeah.
I literally worked out and went to school all day long.
Makes
That's all I
sense.
did.
Yeah.
But for you, like, where did you feel like, so like college for me was like a huge, like growing up and maturing period, but like, where did you get, like, did you get that when you were in high school? Like, are you just kind of doing
Yeah,
it?
that's,
Like, or
that's a
did you
great
never think
question.
about
I
that?
think I'm still obviously kind of growing up right now, right? Most of the people that I went to high school with are in probably like their third year of college.
Mm-hmm.
So I would technically still be in college right now. Like I'm definitely still growing up. I think what helped me with that and what really kind of attracted me to money to begin with was when I started working during COVID. Because I wasn't going to school, so I had a lot of free time. I wasn't applying myself in school, so I got to I started working at one of my brother's food truck, and that kind
Mm-hmm.
of just showed me money and really wanted to kind of get after it. But as far as maturing and kind of growing up, I'm still doing that. I'm still, putting different
Yeah.
things that in place that work for me and what's going to help me get to where I want to go.
Yeah. Well, like what? Okay, so I'm turning 25 in a week, so my prefrontal cortex is going to be developed in 7 days. So I'm like, I'm turning the corner where I'm now becoming old. What like do you? When I was your age, when I was 20, 21, I would look back at my life every like 30 to 90 days and be like, damn, dude, I was a fucking idiot like a couple months ago. Like, do you do that? Like, does that happen?
Uh, that's
Like, do you feel like your perspective on the world changing, like just randomly? Like you'll be like, oh, I turned the corner, now I see it this way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean it's little things from moving. I just moved into my own home, and being able to do things that I wasn't doing before. That's helped me like really understand like, okay, there's different responsibilities and different things that I have to do when I'm kind of living on my own and become trying to become an adult, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, every day I feel like I'm learning new stuff and just trying to improve myself. Not just my business, but like what the type of person that I want to be
Mm-hmm.
in my everyday life.
Well, talk about it. What kind of person do you want to be? Like, what things are you doing to work on yourself?
Yeah, so one thing I'm really trying to improve on myself is, obviously building the discipline to wake up early, go to the gym, be someone who is a little bit more, kind of like outdoors. I like doing, you put me on rock climbing, little hikes, stuff like that.
Yep.
Things like that, just to do things that I enjoy and not have so much, time where I'm just kind of just chilling, really doing nothing. If I'm going to be chilling, I want to be, working on my business and striving to be better,
Mm-hmm.
and really just figuring out every single day again the type of person that I want to become. I may not necessarily know exactly who I want to be right now, but I think I'm definitely figuring that out every single day.
Yeah. I mean, you probably know like who you don't want to be, and that like helps.
Absolutely.
That's like another like angle. It's like let's just go away from that. do you have you always been an extremist? Because like in school, you went from you basically were like a flunk out, like an F student, which is like one extreme, like I don't show up, and then now you're like I'm hard business, like making money. Obviously you got you're doing things in your life, but like would you consider yourself like an extremist, like one side of the pendulum or the other?
Yeah, I mean, I think even as far as like my girlfriend says this is when I have like when I'm hooked on like some sort of food, I'll eat that shit every
Mm.
day. Every day. So like Chipotle, I had a phase where I was eating that like every single day for like a couple weeks straight. Um, so I'll do that. It's like when I'm on something, I'm on it, and I feel
Yeah.
like that's something within my business as well. I can definitely apply that too. It's like when when I'm in my mode for a couple weeks of like getting nonstop stuff done, it's like it's a great feeling. And then obviously, you kind of go into the modes where you have all right, let me slow down a little bit on this and kind of take back some time to think, to reflect and see what I need to put that application into next.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how every entrepreneur I know is like, it's like you go from search mode. So like I'll eat like everything and then I'll find something and I'll just only eat that. And then I'll be like, okay, it's time for something new. Then I'll do everything again and then I'll find something new and then I'll just only do that. That's how like my entire life is.
It's like that.
I'm trying to build some balance though. I'm trying to take some more days off, but What about you? Like, do you work every day? Like, what is your daily schedule look like to go from building from doing 10K a month to 60K a month and trying to hit 100K a month consistently every month?
Yeah. So I guess my daily schedule right now is really I wake up about 7 o'clock, and from about 7 to 9, or maybe like by 7 to 8:30, I like to just kind of take my dogs on a walk, spend some time with them, just really just take some time to chill and reflect. And then I start working around like 9:30. That's when my first meeting is, and really it's just meetings in the mornings and kind of just active work, trying to push my business forward. And then I usually stop working around like maybe 6, 7 o'clock. And those last few hours kind of goes back to, I like to read the Bible, reflect on kind of, the type of person I want to be, spend some time with my dogs and my girlfriend, and then try to go to sleep around like, 9, 10 o'clock, in bed around like, 9:30, sleep by 10. And that's something I'm trying to build consistency within myself. I know that I go to sleep, later on the weekends. So, maybe I won't work as much on the weekends either, but I try to still, hey, I'm going to block out from, 8 to 11 or even 8 to 12. I'm going to be doing things that need to be done and push my business forward. So I think that's something I'm really trying to apply myself to right now, is a consistent schedule to, hey, these are the times where I'm not just going to have time like, should I work? Should I not work? It's like, okay, these are the times I'm going to work. And these are the times where, hey, I'm a little more freer to do what I want to do and what I necessarily enjoy doing. Obviously I enjoy growing my business and, accomplishing things every day, but, maybe things that I find a little bit more fun, like rock climbing or spending time with my girlfriend and my dogs.
Yeah.
That's all I do. I just did the same thing like 3-4 times. That's really all I do, man. And family. I love my
work, family, girlfriend, dog.
There you go.
He's a 5-tool player. Do you ever get time for yourself? Like you just chill, just like sit down, man, stare at a wall, watch YouTube?
Heck yeah, man. No, I mean, that's like in the mornings, like 7 to 8:30. That's kind of what I'm doing. That's your time? Yeah, that's my time, man. I'm chilling with my dogs, rubbing their bellies, giving them treats, maybe watching a YouTube video. I'm a huge football 49er fan, so I love watching, like anything 49ers. Yeah, that's what I like to do.
What do you think about? Is it Jim Harbaugh? Is he still a coach?
No, man. He's a college coach. Yeah, nah.
Wait, what? It wasn't him. He was the coach though for a bit.
Yeah, he was. Like until like.
Dude, I haven't watched NFL in like 10 years probably.
Yeah, you live like right next, or used to. I don't know if you still live.
Right I live like a mile away from the Broncos. I went and ran around it yesterday. Actually, did a lap around the Broncos stadium.
This guy.
Saw Russell Wilson running away from the cops with all his millions of dollars for stealing from Denver.
That's crazy.
Yeah, dude. That's crazy that they're that bad. They're horrible. I don't know if you.
I saw he made like 100 and something million playing like 11 games or something like. I saw that. That's
throwing
crazy.
like 20 interceptions. Stud.
Wild.
I can't talk trash on him. His QBR rating was actually better than Patrick Mahomes this year. I saw this on Instagram. Just going off Instagram, but their team must be pretty bad because he actually statistically isn't horrible. So they just must be pretty bad.
Yeah,
I don't know. What do you think? You're the football expert. What do you think?
I really just follow the 49ers. I've heard a little bit about that, but I know that he's he got benched and a bunch of stuff, not wanting to restructure contracts. So I'm pretty sure he's done there.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure they regret paying him all that money.
Dude, we'll talk about
he made
talk about a bad hire,
bad
bro.
Hire, man.
The 110 milli, dude, just for someone to not even think.
I think to put that into a business perspective, I think that would be like hiring an acquisition manager when you have no leads coming in.
That's interesting. I think that's a great hiring an acquisition manager when you can't do the work yourself.
He has nobody to throw the ball to,
Yeah. Literally. I think that's 100% the best. Dude, that's fire. That's
You
fire.
got to clip that right there. Just that.
That's a clip, dude. That's a clip. Put that at the beginning of the podcast. Um, that's good. I have to think about that, but that's an incredible comparison. So do you ever make comparisons? Like I do this a lot. Do you ever make comparisons where you're just like, it just doesn't quite land? Like you try to be funny, you try to be relatable, and you just throw one out there, and it's just like, they're like, I don't know, dude, that one wasn't that good.
Next time that happens, I'll definitely think about you. But I can't think of a time in my head where that's happening right now. But
You're just perfect.
Sounds like a you thing, man.
Dude, it must be, man. It must like when you the thing is when you try to be funny, sometimes you just aren't funny. So like it's like a comedian telling jokes is when they try a new set or a new joke or whatever, a new bit, and then they bomb because it just doesn't quite land right. Shit happens, man. You gotta feel, but that makes you better. Failure is what pushes you forward.
Absolutely.
That's what Ray Dalio told me, at least.
You only fail if you don't keep going.
Facts. So talk about it. Let's talk about this year. What's your goals for this year, Emilio?
So goal for this year is to hit 1.25 million in revenue.
Nice.
Obviously, the way I'm going to do that is to continue doing what I've been doing and filling each role, putting different people in different seats that are going to allow me to maximize and leverage my time to what is going to push the business forward. And I think I've kind of talked about that already. What's going to do that is me becoming a better leader, leading these people, putting different processes in place, and recognizing when something isn't working to make those pivots in order to hit the different benchmarks that we need. Obviously, if you want to break it up into quarters, 1.25 million revenue, there's certain numbers that I have to hit every single quarter in order to kind of be on track to hit that. If I'm off one quarter, then I'm going to have to make up for that. And I think it's, it goes back to, tracking metrics, having a predictable business, and having people, the right people, right? The quality of people that's going to be able to get me to that. And I think that's something I'm working on every day, trying to hire the right people to put into the right spots. That way we can produce the numbers that we need to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, I think at the end of the day, you just got to get yourself removed from the low leverage task and put people in there who are going to be really, really good at them.
Yeah.
And then have the right people on the boat. And then I think, dude, leadership is, you look at any organization, even I think the Bulldogs are the best recent example that I've ever observed, because like the Georgia Bulldogs football team, they literally went from having Mark Richt be the coach for, I don't know, as long as I can remember. And then maybe it was 4 or 5 years ago, Kirby Smart took over, and they went from being, a fringe like SEC championship team. Like they'll make it 1 year, they won't make it a few years, always getting beat by Alabama. You can see that pains me a little bit. And then Kirby Smart comes in second year. They make it to the national championships. I think they lost, and then they won the 2 years after that. And then this year, we all know what happened. Yeah. But basically, you look at, I watched the game, the post-game interview, and I never watched the games anymore. I used to go to all the games back in the day when I was in school, go to all the UGA games, but business and YouTube take over. Sports kind of take a backseat. But I watched the post-game interview after they played, I think it was TCU or whatever team they played in the semifinals when they won their last championship. And basically, it was Ohio State. They played Ohio State. And Kirby said, they asked him what he thought of the game. He said, if we play like that, we're definitely not going to win. The team needs to step up. The quarterback needs to step up. Everyone, basically they listed out, called out names, these guys need to step up if we want to win. Yeah. And, you watch that, and I'm like, damn, dude, that guy's a fucking leader. Because you just see it, and you're like, and I think back to the coaches I had, he says the things that are going to piss people off in the short term, and it's going to upset people and make them feel like, dang, I'm not quite there yet. I'm not good enough. I need to do better. But it's the things that need to be said that make the huge transformation. Because he could have easily been like, oh, yeah, we played good. We won. We got a dub. We got to go do it again. That could have been his mentality. And then who knows if they would have won the national championship. I mean, they played a way worse team in the finals than they did in the semis. But you get the point. It's the standard that he held it to. Yeah. The standard he held them to was not perfection, but damn near. And he didn't feel like they reached that. And I guarantee that next week of practice for 3 days, they grinded it super hard. And that was all he said is you guys got to be fucking better over and over again. Which takes me back to, I don't know if you played sports, but when I played sports, the best coach I had, one of the best coaches I had, I remember I lost a match my senior year, and he looked at me, he said, why'd you lose that match, son? I go, because I was out of shape. And I lost to a guy who was like a 4-time state champ, and I lost by like 1 point, but I got tired in the third period. And I said, it's because I got tired. And he's like, you going to let that happen again? I said, no, sir. And he said, all right, so on Monday, I'll make sure, he said, for the next 2 weeks, I'll make sure that that won't happen as well. And then every day as I would run by, he'd pull me aside. He'd be like, you tired yet? And then I'd be like, no, sir. And he'd be like, well, go fucking run harder. And then, or like go work out harder or whatever. And like, that was like 2 weeks, and like hardest 2 weeks of my life. But without that, I don't know if, I accomplished what I need. So it's like,
Yeah.
the high performers want that. Like for me, like I wasn't mad at him. I was like, dang, you're right. Like I'm not doing what's required.
Yeah.
And to step up.
That's perfect. I love that. It showed the type of leader that he was, and what, like you said, you were a high performer, and at that time you were being led by him, and his coaching style or his leadership style is what pushed you to reach to that level, his standard for you, and your standard for yourself, right? Which
for sure. Well, I also think you mentioned this earlier, and I want to know what you're doing about it. But you said everyone takes feedback differently. So like, how do you apply that into your leadership today?
Ooh, that's good. I think the biggest thing is when you're given feedback, you kind of see. I always like to, you look people in the eyes, and obviously we're doing this virtually, right? We're doing this on a meeting. So when
we're eye to eye right now.
Yeah, you give them their feedback, and depending on, I like to look at their facial expression. That always kind of gives me a good idea as to really how deep I want to go into that feedback, how receptive they are. And I always like to ask for kind of like confirmation. Like when I give them that feedback, like, does that make sense? What do you think about that? Or, what are your thoughts on what I just said? How can you apply that? Right? Little things like that. And then their response to that is going to tell me how they take that feedback. As far as like when I was talking about how everybody takes feedback differently, one thing I, kind of learned from your guys' hiring process is, when you're interviewing somebody, you do a role play and you give them feedback. Sometimes, there's not much feedback to give on, but you'll give something. That way you can kind of learn how that person takes feedback. And I think that kind of goes back into, whether they're going to be a good fit for your team. Is that somebody that's coachable and somebody that you're going to be able to push forward? And really, is it a high performer that wants to be led the way that you want to lead people?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that there's like, I'm dealing with a person right now who's a very high performer, incredibly high performer.
Okay.
And like, they just are impossible to lead. Like impossible to lead and impossible to hold accountable. They're really, really great, but it just is like not going to work out because there's just like some friction there for whatever reason. Either I'm not good enough of a leader or I made the wrong decision or whatever it was, but it's hard because then you spend all this time and energy and money and then it doesn't work out. And like, yes, it's a net positive, but because you learn stuff and the business gets pushed forward, but it's still tough. It's like, and you feel kind of defeated when you're working with someone like that because you're like, oh man, I just can't quite get over what I want. So it's hard.
What's your goal with that person right now? Or I guess short term, what's your plan?
Oh yeah, short term. So just phase them out over the next, their last day is February 28th or whatever, or like whatever the last day of February it is. And I'll just have to replace them.
But so you said they're a high performer. I guess just the fact that.
So technically like they're the head of our client success for Level Up.
Okay.
And it's just like, it's just tough.
Yeah.
Super like, dude, incredibly talented. So like for me, like what I have to do is basically I'm going to rework the entire department to make it to where like I learned a lot of things through this process to where I now understand much more clearly how releasing the bottleneck of hiring really good client success managers is, and also building a great product and building a great service. Like I learned and like renew, like all this stuff, like because of this process, push the business forward way like super fast in my knowledge as well and my understanding. So like it's a huge net positive for me. Also I think for both people involved, but basically my next step is to optimize the product to take some of the burden off the actual client success managers so I can hire a little bit less specific people. So like, but instead of like hiring like people who have already done wholesale deals, have scaled their company to multi 6 figures a year, I just want to hire people who are like really good generally in business, and then I can teach them all the real estate stuff, and then they can apply the knowledge of the real estate stuff, have a better like system. So like, for example, you know how we like consult on like net lead to appointment. How do you increase that? There's all the different things you can do to increase it based on your business. And so like I have a document that I'm filming right now that's going to be the new course and also the training document that I use to train our team. that basically has everything outlined with all the different nuances, not all of them, but 90% of the nuances taken care of. And so
Yeah.
they can just like watch that and be like, it's like a recipe basically. So find out the issue, go revert back to the manual. All right, based on looking at the manual, I now know what to do. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And that's allowing me to make the product better. And just basically just the best way I could say is like decentralize the success of our clients from it being solely this client success manager's job to being the ecosystem as a whole. So like adding like I'm gonna add like accountability pods and a couple other things. But I mean that's what I'm doing, and then like I'll have to just replace the person.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, I mean, that, like you said, it's at the end of the day, it was a net positive. Obviously, it was great for the business, and it showed you what you want out of that role now.
Yeah, and like through the process too, like I guess to give a little bit more light, maybe like to what you were asking, like how did I navigate and understand that this was not going to work out? It was there's kind of like a mixture of like intuition, gut feeling, where it's like I just feel like something's off, and then like as things progress, you start to see maybe because now you're aware of it, and so like it's like now you like you'll say you bought a red car. Once you buy a red car, now you see all the red cars. There's only red cars out there, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So now I've recognized that I feel like something's off, and so now I'm looking for it. And when I start looking for it, I start to see it, and eventually it's small things, and then eventually enough small things creates a thing that just is like kind of like an impasse. It's like, okay, well, we're going to talk about it and then see if there's any way that it can, like me and the person would talk about the impasse and be like, hey, is there any way we can come to amends on this? Yes or no? No or yes, here's the options that we see. It's kind of a negotiation in a sense of like, here's what I'm willing to do. Here's what you're willing to do. Here's what we're willing to agree on to move forward together. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, also great. And you shake hands and like go the other way. And like, there's no hard feelings. I have so much respect for the person, and yeah, that's the reality of it.
Yeah, that's the best way for things to end. And at the end of the day, it was push your guys' business forward.
Yeah, and anytime you hire someone who's really talented, it pushes you forward as a leader too, because you're like, damn, I got to like step up in order to have this
Yeah,
guy like on my team. So I think
yeah,
that's another thing too is if you get nervous about who you hire, that's probably meaning you're thinking about hiring the right person.
yeah. That's good. I like that.
But yeah, so what are some things you're gonna like for leadership wise? Obviously, that's a big one. Is there any like tactical plays you're gonna do from going from around 700 to a 1.25? Any tactical moves you have to make?
That's great. I think it's being able to hold my team accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And one point I really love that you made was the standard, right? Having a standard that is something that's achievable, of course, but obviously something that we're holding them to. And if we're beneath that standard, we need to actually be making pivots and making changes in order to do that, right? I think there's like a quote, right? It says like insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting something different, something like that, right? I'm probably not quoting that the best.
No, I think that's perfect. I mean,
So
I would plagiarize. I would call you for plagiarizing if I was an English teacher, dude.
there you go. So
Put
I
that shit
think
in APA,
it's
dude.
right. It's like making those changes as they're going, with the accountability that I'm holding them to and the standard that I'm holding them to. As long as we're making changes in order to push the business forward and not just expecting results when doing the same thing, I think that's going to show my team that we're actually trying to push the business forward and just instead of being comfortable. And I think people want to see growth, right? They want to see the business grow and they want to see that they have room to grow within the business instead of feeling like they're maxed out. So as long as they see those pivots and those changes and that we're trying to grow and that things are, obviously working, I think that's going to prove to them and being able to be confident in you as a leader. And obviously that it's going to make it easier as a leader for you to grow your team and lead them.
Yeah, dude, I love that. I think one of the things I struggle with a lot from not struggle with it a lot, but struggle with it sometimes, especially when I start to get complacent in like the performance that we're having.
Yeah.
Or like, and then this is where it's helpful to have goals that push you a little bit. Because if you don't have goals that push you to change from where you're at today, then you're going to get complacent and these things will happen. But for me, when I get complacent, is I see numbers that are missing, say our measurable is to get 100 appointments this week or 100 appointments this month or whatever it is, and you miss it and you don't do anything, well then like what's the point of even tracking it? It's like, why does it even matter? Like these numbers, these things you look at on a daily basis, on a weekly basis should create action. And I think that if it doesn't, then you should ask yourself, why not? and then you should have a good answer for why not, or you should be doing something about it. And it's tough because that's the harder way to run a business is to do things to fix things that are wrong instead of just like let them keep going.
Yeah, I think identifying those things is hard within itself. Being able
For sure.
to make the pivots and the right pivots, it takes trial and error, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Dude, I think I enjoy because we've worked together for what, like little over a year and a half. It's been like almost 2 years.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I think I want to say it was beginning of either maybe mid 2022 or late 2022. I really don't remember. I
It
would have
was I wasn't I- it was mid to late because I remember I was in Colombia at one point. I left for Colombia last day of August. So it was somewhere in that neighborhood, mid to
okay.
late 2022.
Yeah,
But regardless, is what I find extremely cool is listening to the growth. When I ask you these questions, like just seeing the growth in the way that you think about problems and seeing your growth in business has been awesome. So
I
I think
appreciate
that
that,
that's
man. And
super dope
a lot of that, I have to thank you for that. You helped me along the way, huge amount, and helping me grow my business, helping me grow the way I think through these types of problems. So appreciate that, man.
for sure, bro. Got a bright future ahead of you, dog. I know for a fact you're going to hit 1.2. Not really concerned about that. That's like well within reach, especially like how things have been performing the last couple months. So I'm excited for the year. With that being said, dude, is there any advice you'd give someone who's kind of stuck around that 15 to 30K per month range and how they can 3X their business?
I think it really goes back to I love an exercise that you told us to do at the Denver event was put out everything that you're doing on a day to day basis. Um, or even a weekly basis, like what just everything that you're doing in your business, how much time you're spending on that, and it's hard to measure, but how much you think that's actually returning you on your time, as far as revenue and
Mm-hmm.
all the stuff that's low leverage, that's not really making you much money. I think it's pretty easy to say that you should hand off that task to somebody else, fill in that seat with someone else. Um, and yes, you are going to have to spend money in order to do that. But the return that you're going to get from having other people do that and having those things off your plate, that way you can focus on what's actually important, is going to be well worth it.
For sure. Well said. I love it, dude. At the end of the day, all it is like optimizing yourself to make more money, and then everyone else will do the same in your company. And sometimes one other caveat, sometimes when you have a team in place, what I've found is that I will occasionally hire someone to do a role and not fully delegate every task to them. And I'll hold on to
Yeah.
some things sometimes if I don't, before I like mapped out all the roles and responsibilities for that like leadership position. And then like it would be like this thing where I look back 3 months later, I'm like, oh, dude, I'm doing like half their job, or like I'm worried about half their job because I haven't fully like delegated it to them. So that's another thing to think about too. Sometimes it doesn't cost you money.
Yeah, that's something that
Some
I've kind of gone through recently with my like executive assistant. I'm trying to pass them off like transaction stuff, and there's like a deal that we're JVing, and I was about to send an email out, and I was like, let me add this to the process and kind of show her, hey, this is when you need to send this email here. Send this email out, get this addendum out to the title company. Again, I could have done it, and it's not hard work or anything, but if I can automate that to where I don't even have to think about doing that, I can be working on something else that's genuinely going to push the business forward versus something like that that's really just one small puzzle piece.
Yeah, for sure. And that right there is self-awareness though, because what a lot of people do, I had this conversation with these guys last week and they had like their TC, they're basically just doing the same things. They would just like get a problem from their TC and then they would just go and solve it. And like, instead of like empowering the actual person to go and figure it out on their own and just coaching them through it, they would just go and fix it for them. So like what kind of, like if you're training a dog, like what kind of behavior does that teach? It teaches them to come to you every time. So it's like, you got to know like basically your actions have repercussions and you got to make sure that the actions you do have the right repercussions. Like even comp plans, like what's the incentive? Like you say you get commission on this bonus. What does that incentivize? Is it what you want it to incentivize? And same way
Yeah.
with your leadership.
No,
So
absolutely. I think, yeah. So like another thing with that is trying to get my team to call these inbound leads on the weekend. I can incentivize them and kind of show them like, hey, these leads are coming in hot. And it kind of goes back to leadership, right? Kind of telling them, why we should be calling these leads. Hey, if you want to make the most amount of money that you can, call these leads on the weekend. They're inbound leads. They're filling out a web form. They're, probably searching something up. They saw an ad. So call these leads up and leading them and getting them obviously excited about wanting to call those leads and showing them what the potential is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's huge. Sweet, dude. This was fantastic. I appreciate you coming on here, bro.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you having me on, man.
Where can people find you if they want to reach out and ask you any questions?
Yeah, man. I'm on Instagram. Emilio, my first name, and then Laura, last name with the one in the L in Laura is a 1. So Emilio 1 ARA. You can hit me up there. Be more than happy to chat with you guys or answer any questions if you guys want to reach out. But I appreciate you having me on, Chandler. I'm excited to keep growing and keep going and going at this with you.
Hell yeah, dude. All right. We'll see you guys next time. Appreciate you.